We need some water. We need some water in here.
Where is it?
I think I left it downstairs, actually. We're trying to drink water and be responsible adults as opposed to alcohol.
Oh, hi, Beth.
Which is what we will be discussing today.
Honestly, last week, Tyler was already drinking, but...
I was?
Yeah.
No way.
Through 4 p.m., yeah. But today we're
we had a wedding
11.
to go to.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why we're redoing it. Can you please go get me some water?
Absolutely.
Real fast. I'll go get the water. Everybody, Tyler will just entertain you for a little bit. You told me you had water.
It's on the living room down there. Well, guys, I'm here by myself. I'm Gaines with Gerds, for those of you who don't know me. And today, we have a very complex topic to discuss, but we're going to simplify it for you and discuss how can you consume
I just
alcohol.
drank water from the sink. It's fine.
Around your physique journey, around your fitness journey. How does it impact the body? Ranya is going to talk a lot about how it's digested, what it does once it's inside your body.
But I'm going to keep it surface level for the most part.
You have to. It gets like crazy complex.
Yeah, like the biochemistry of any metabolism. It's like honestly, maybe we should make a course about that.
Yeah, we could. Do you guys want a course on that?
Would y'all want a course about? It's like taking you back to chemistry days where you have all of the chemical symbols, you have all the arrows. It shows you exactly like how things work, what electrons, protons, all those stuff.
You guys want to go back to chemistry school? I don't.
Honestly, though, I think it's important. I think the human body is so complex, and I think everyone should know.
Oh, yeah. I mean, education about how your body operates serves you for the rest of your life.
I'm looking at myself from this angle, and I don't like it. This angle's great.
Yeah.
That, I don't understand that.
Yeah, we got 2 cameras right now, so if you see us looking here and looking there or here, it's because we got cameras everywhere. But that's not the point of today.
Okay.
What is the point of today, Ranya?
To just chat about alcohol.
Booze.
Yeah, and talk about...
Booze.
And allow everyone to kind of make their own decision on how they want to incorporate alcohol into their lives and their fitness journeys, because alcohol is such a prevalent thing in our society in terms of social gatherings and yada, 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 yada. I love wine. I love tequila. I was a very heavy drinker in college. Like, I was a party animal. But I personally don't actually love drinking that much anymore. Tyler's the opposite. Like, he loves his beer and his whiskey.
But for me, it's more of like a family thing. Like,
this isn't centered.
Celebrations, family gatherings. My family is always, they consume alcohol.
And my family, I grew up, my parents, like my mom at the wedding had, I think, like 3 sips of a martini and was lit. My dad, I think, had 1 glass of champagne and was lit. So that's how I grew up. And then I think when I was in college, I was like finally exposed to alcohol, and I was like, yeah. And then I partied it all out of my system, and I still enjoy like a casual, simple wine night or mimosa day or, martini every now and then. Not really good at tequila shots anymore. I used to be great. But anyways, so the first thing that I wanted to talk about was just explain how alcohol is its own macro. So last week we talked a lot about macronutrients. And if at any point you're confused, just pop a question in the chat and we will cover it. The more we do these, the more we're realizing like, oh, we probably should take 20 steps backwards. But you can always ask questions. So remember go ahead.
Stick around until the last 10 minutes, because that's when I'm going to kind of come in with how you can take what Ronnie is going to share with you, which is super cool, and kind of apply it in your fitness journey. So go on.
It's super cool. Okay. So we have the 3 macros that we all, carbs, fats, and proteins, right? Alcohol is technically its own macro. However, so we're going to just do a little quick thing at the beginning about tracking alcohol. So we have carbs, which have 4 calories per gram. And then we have proteins, which have 4 calories per gram. Because I made a post about this, so I just clarify. And then we have fats, which have 9 calories per gram. And then we have alcohol. And the reason it's its own macro, which we'll talk about, is because it is not used by the body as fuel. And so it doesn't fall into the category of being a carb. It doesn't fall into the category of being a fat. It doesn't fall into the category of being a protein. But alcohol, and drinking alcohol is ethanol, 7 calories per gram. So, however, if you wanted to, like, you could track your alcohol calories.
I'll hold it for you there.
In terms of just being alcohol. But for most people who track their macros, they use MyFitnessPal or some macro tracking, app. And the easiest way to track drinking your alcohol is, we never want to take away from protein, because remember, protein is the one macro that we don't store. And so we want to make sure we're hitting our protein macro every day. So we track it as either carbs or fats. And the way you do that is, I'll do like an example. So the reason why I wrote these numbers out is because it's important. So carbs, they have 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. So a 5-ounce glass of red wine, like a average red wine, has 125 calories. Okay. So to track it as a carb, if there's 4 calories per gram of carb, you just divide 125 by 4. What is that?
I was running on like 33.
Well, whatever 125 by 4 would be grams of carbs. If you wanted to track it as a fat, it would be 125 calories divided by 9 calories, because 9 calories per gram of fat. And that would be grams of carbs, of fat. And then, this is really hard to write and do this. And then, if you wanted to, for example, say you're going out to eat, say you wanted to track your alcohol, but you don't want to like use a ton of carbs and you don't want to use a ton of fats, and you want to kind of split it proportionally. You can really split it however you want. You could split it 50-50, you could split it 25%, 75%, however you wanted to split it. But what you would do is you would take the number of calories in the beverage you'll be drinking, and say you wanted to do it like 50-50. Then 125 divided by 2 is 62.5. Then you would take 62.5 calories divided by 4 to get half carb, and then 62.5 calories divided by 9 to get the other half fat. And that way you're not using a ton of carbs or a ton of fat, you're kind of splitting from both. And so then you have room to eat carbs and fats too. But it's important to track your alcohol because, and this will get into the rest of the science lab, alcohol is a sneaky little devil.
Yeah, the way it's metabolized is different than any of the other macronutrients.
But also,
variety
it's
of ways.
Very calorically dense. So, like, I believe the least calorically dense alcohol is tequila. And 1 tequila shot has like 68 calories. But usually, and this is why it's important for y'all to just kind of think about, it's kind of like a lifestyle thing, right? There's some nights where you might want to go crazy, but there might be some nights where you just want to have a glass of wine. So we're just kind of explaining the difference between like how you can still have alcohol during your fitness journey, but to be cognizant of not overdoing it all the time just because of how it can impact your fitness journey. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so say you have a tequila shot, right? 68 calories. But then the drink has like 3 tequila shots, so that's 68 times 3. So that's already a ton of carbs and fats, technically. They could just kind of sneaks up on you. So, what should I talk about next? how alcohol is metabolized or what alcohol does to your body?
Well, they're both related, right? So it goes to the liver, right, to be metabolized, which is different than any other macro, where the majority of the metabolization happens. And that's kind of why, like, you know, it's cool to think about like a hangover, right? When you've consumed too much, the next day you feel, you know, poorly, and it just kind of feels like everything's off. Your head hurts, but your stomach is also kind of, you know, queasy. You know, a lot of that has to do with like the backup and the time it takes to process and metabolize alcohol, and that it
and
affects
we can talk
everything.
about. Does anyone have questions about what a hangover actually is? Because we can talk about that too. But
I have the best hangover cure, by the way.
Is it mine?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay. God. Okay.
She never knows what to expect.
We don't really plan out these science labs that much. We kind of just like...
It's supposed to be more of a conversation.
We kind of just wing it. But anyways, you want to draw this out? You want to draw the human for us?
I'll draw the human.
Yeah? Okay. So I'm reading my notes just because I'm someone who needs to have somewhat of a notes. Otherwise I just go all over the place. What happens? You drink your alcohol, right? It goes in your mouth. And then, where does it go next? Ty, did you draw our human?
The stomach.
Yep. And so, as soon as it gets into your stomach, what's crazy, and we're not going to go into the biochemistry of all of it, but what we are going to do is just talk about the absorption. So a little bit of the alcohol is going to get absorbed in your stomach, but the majority of it is going to start traveling towards your small intestine and towards your liver.
Oh,
and
sorry.
spread throughout the blood. Oh, God. I'm sorry, guys. He can't really draw very well, so...
That's a pretty good liver.
No, a liver looks like that.
That's a good liver. Liver, small intestine, boom. Here's the stomach. Right?
Mm-hmm. And so the liver is technically your toxin filtering contraption in your body. But the liver can only oxidize, and it's different for every single person, but basically 1 drink per hour, right? So that's like the standard, but it's usually around an ounce of alcohol per hour. Sometimes, like, I'm pretty sure Tyler, because of his genetics, because of his size, he can have more drinks than I can in an hour. But, okay.
It's a green liver.
Yep, and it's also spreading throughout your bloodstream.
Yeah, so and that's when you know, BAC concentration, blood alcohol concentration, the reason an hour after your last drink is when your BAC is the highest is because that's how long it takes to get into the bloodstream, right? So if you have 3 drinks in 1 hour, that second hour, your BAC spikes, right? Skyrockets.
Okay,
and that's
so
why
it's spreading throughout the blood.
Yeah.
And usually it's quickly distributed throughout the blood, which is when we start to feel that warm, tingly, fuzzy feeling, right? And think about it. We have blood vessels that connect our entire body all the way up to our brain. And so alcohol travels to our brain. At first, it can release dopamine, which is like the happy hormone. But then, obviously, the more we drink, the more things can start to get impaired. Not to mention that it also impacts your kidneys, and we'll talk about how. And then, not to mention that it can also go to your lungs. And it basically has an entire effect on the body as a whole. And we'll talk about also how it impacts the muscles. But what I wanted to talk about is what alcohol is doing within your body. And I really thought you were going to say a lot more about alcohol, but that's fine. So let's talk about your fitness journey. I think he just wants to give his opinion. But
Always.
okay. So when it comes to your hormones, when it comes to your fitness journey, when it comes to the hard work you're putting into your fitness journey, right? So the majority of people on a fitness journey, whether they're athletes trying to get faster, trying to get stronger, whether you're in a muscle building phase, whether you're in a fat loss phase where you're still trying to maintain muscle mass, whatever phase you're in, and this is more so like if you're drinking often, binge drinking a lot, this is not like a 1 glass of wine kind of thing. But alcohol, because it is not digested by the body, it is not used as fuel by the body, what it's actually going to do in terms of your muscle protein synthesis, which I have a post on muscle protein synthesis. It's basically muscle protein synthesis is when your muscle fibers are rebuilding. It's anabolic. Catabolic is the breaking down of something. So alcohol is actually a catabolic substance within your body. He has a whole spiel about how you can still drink and make gains, which is true.
Well, not really.
I'm gonna let him.
It's not what it's about, right? But it does impact muscle protein synthesis.
Long-term alcohol use, it will. Long-term alcohol use diminishes protein synthesis, which over time, it's not just a one-time thing, over time can reduce muscle growth. And it also can prevent muscle recovery. So usually when I drink, I'm not right now because I'm in prep, but usually if I were to drink, it's on a rest day because I didn't just lift that day, you know? But we have a hormone, HGH, which is human growth hormone. It's produced naturally within our body. And when we drink a lot or just drink often, it can actually reduce the ability to produce HGH, which is needed to grow our muscles. And then long-term binge drinking can also impact your testosterone levels in males and females, which again, testosterone is a hormone that is needed for our muscles, and hormone health in general. So it can reduce T levels in both males and females. So those are just things to consider long-term. In terms of the kidneys, so your kidneys get impacted by alcohol. Basically alcohol. So I don't know if you drink a lot or if you drink often or if you drink and you forget to hydrate with water too, you can raise your hand or something. But like how many people feel really puffy and like really bloated the next day, right? So alcohol is actually a diuretic. And what that means is like when you drink, or at least when I used to drink a lot, I would always try and hold my pee because I didn't want to break the seal, right? Break the seal. But alcohol causes us to pee a lot. And what we're peeing out is not really that much alcohol. It's actually, Beth is like, yes, Puffy. So the alcohol hasn't reached our bladder yet. What's coming out of us is water, but also a ton of minerals and nutrients that like our body needs that the alcohol, we're just excreting all our water, right? And we think because we're drinking alcohol that we're hydrating, but we're actually not, because usually, unless you're really smart and chug a lot of water during this time, you're filling your body with alcohol and not filling your body with water. So you'll end up getting dehydrated, which is why most people feel really puffy. Alcohol is also a vasodilator. You want to talk about, I don't know if you guys, this happens to him all the time, but you get your veins start to pop, right? It looks like you have a pump when you drink because alcohol actually causes all the warm blood to like rush to the surface of the vein and pop under your skin. So it'll look like you're really veiny. But what that can do in terms of your muscle, like, what's the word? Recovery after a lift, or like if you have an injury, it causes the blood to rush to like certain sites of the body. So I don't know, when I get injured, I've had many injuries and I always wake up the next day and that whole part of me is like inflamed and sore and swollen. So that's another thing alcohol can do for you. Binge, just a lot of alcohol. Yeah. So it disrupts your water balance. It can slow down muscle protein synthesis, dehydrates the body, slows down. These are just negative effects. Positive effects, we have fun, right? Reduces HGH, human growth hormone. The other thing is, because alcohol is very calorically dense, so they're technically empty calories, though, right? So like when you're on a fitness journey and you're tracking your macros, and whatever your macros are, like we want the majority of our macros to come from food, because like food is what actually is. I'm just looking at Tyler's face right now. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah.
Food is what causes our body to thrive. Alcohol doesn't really cause our body
they're like
to thrive.
it's literally just empty calories. Like there's the simple way to put it is that when you drink alcohol, it doesn't do anything positive for your body other than change your psychology. So if you're gonna do it, then how do you do it in a more constructive way on your fitness journey?
Just being smart. So
the muscle protein synthesis stuff that she mentioned, the testosterone,
I have more notes.
All of that is related to your muscles and the way that you physically look. Okay. The puffiness that she mentioned, throwing off your water balance, the vasodilation that occurs, all of those things not only impact your performance the day after drinking, but also impact the way that your physique looks that day, and also how it is going to recover from past sessions you've done that week, right? Muscles that are still trying to repair or grow or recover. Body is always trying to find homeostasis or balance in everything, in the muscles, in every organ, in every tissue within the body. When you drink alcohol, you're intentionally getting out of homeostasis very rapidly. So that's why when she's saying it throws everything off, it truly does. However, there's a few studies that I really like to look at.
I wasn't finished talking about how it impacts your nutrition.
Oh, the macros?
No, like how it slows down the rate of absorption of the minerals and vitamins within the food that you're eating as well.
Yeah. So it affects absorption of vitamins and minerals in the food that you consume, or the food that is still being processed in your stomach.
Before Tyler goes on his tangent, I just like to finish my piece, because then he'll just go on his whole spiel.
That's why I try and just stay quiet the whole time.
He also was on a call until right before this, so it's not his fault. But, so, alcohol, obviously, if you drink on an empty stomach, you're going to get lit way faster, which is, it's nice to, eat with alcohol. But on your fitness journey, alcohol, because it is essentially slowing down the metabolism and the absorption of the other foods that you're eating. So, food matters, right? In terms, there's no good and bad foods, but the food, we want it to digest. We want it to either like replenish our glycogen stores, right, after a lift. We want to make sure that like we're fueling ourselves so that we can continue being kick-ass on our journey. Alcohol essentially slows down the rate of absorption, as well as potentially there are certain, I'm not going to go into all the names, but there are certain vitamins and minerals in our body that have a lot of nutritional value that help us with a lot of functions within our body that alcohol essentially like strips when we drink it. And so, for example, like B12 is a vitamin, right? It helps us maintain healthy red blood cells. It helps us maintain healthy nerve cells. And alcohol essentially like prevents B12 from being used in key processes within the body. And so excessive alcohol consumption can cause B12 deficiencies, which a B12 deficiency can like manifest itself as anemia. Things like that. It's just being smart as opposed to being stew on your fitness journey when it comes to alcohol. And then the other thing that I did want to cover before I let Tyler go on his spiel, and we'll wrap it up, and then we can always dive deeper if y'all have questions, was the impact that it has on your mentality and like your mental state and the brain as a whole, and like what a hangover actually is. And yeah, so within your brain, do you want to talk about it since you brought this up?
Oh, the hangover? No, you got it.
No, the impact of alcohol on your brain, and how alcohol is like a depressant, and how alcohol can cause you to be sluggish the next day.
Yeah, because you can speak probably better on like the dopamine stuff that you mentioned and how that relates to mental health, right?
Well, just in general. So I love talking about mental health as well. I personally, I have what's the word? My body produces less dopamine and serotonin than like the average human does. So it could be like called clinical depression, right? So for me, like when I drink, at first when alcohol reaches the brain and the neurons, it's not only slowing down the interaction between the neurons within your brain, which are like the neurons and the neurotransmitters. That's how you do everything. Like the neurons talk to each other. The neurotransmitters are like sending little signals. And when you drink alcohol, it's slow. It's like, think about like running through mud. Like they're like flying through water, and then the water gets really muddy and you're like trudging through it. That's like what's happening in your brain. And at first, when you're getting that like whoop, 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 like getting lit, you're spiking a ton of dopamine. But because the dopamine has just like spiked, what's going to happen the next day, and this happens to me every single time I drink, and it actually happens sometimes like the same night that I drink. If I've drinking more than like I should have, I'll cry, or like I will the next day be very mentally depressed because now my body has like completely gone wacko, and my brain has excreted so much serotonin and dopamine, more than normal, but I don't have enough to replenish it quick enough. So alcohol is actually a depressant as opposed to like the green stuff, which is like a lifter. But sorry, I'm talking about it live, but Beth feels this. I know Beth is very similar to I am. So that's just also something to be cognizant of. I know for like myself, yeah, you always feel sad the next day. Yeah, that's why. The other thing is in our bodies, and then Tyler can talk about the hangover. You want to talk about that?
I was just going to talk about the impact on your physique.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be really cool. But the other thing is, most of us feel like, well, I don't know. He feels great the day after he drinks. If I drink, it depends on what I drink, but I'm slower. I'm slower moving in the morning. And the other thing is, so ATP, which is our cells' energy, is produced in our cells, right? It's basically what allows us to do everything we do. Alcohol will slow down the production of ATP within our body. So our energy, just as a human being, because obviously like we are made of cells, will be slower the next day. Not for everyone, but after a fun night out, usually you might sleep in for a long time. You might just be like, oh God, I can't lift. Your lift might suck. You might be hungover. Your lift might suck. So, yeah. And then if y'all want to know what a hangover is, just pop it in the chat. If not, I'm going to just be like, yeah, I want to know. If not, I'm going to let Tyler talk.
So just wrapping up with she talks a lot about the health impact, not only your mental health, but also, the physiological impact of consuming alcohol, like energy availability. It affects absorption rates of different nutrients, right? It can cause vitamin deficiencies over time. That's crazy stuff, right? So, hey, why do you think the world has so many health crises and chronic disease and cancer and stuff like that? Well, she mentioned at the beginning that alcohol is unfortunately or not, whatever your perspective is, a part of our society, right?
To make this just a really quick story. As a bodybuilder, as a competitor, I take very good care of my body. I work so hard to build the physique I have. Personally, to me, drinking isn't worth, that's not a reward to me, right? I'd much rather eat a Reese's cup than drink a drink. But when I started bodybuilding, I had friends at the time who were mad at me that I stopped drinking. You're not fun anymore. And I was like, great. I'm actually more fun sober than y'all are drunk, but that's cool. And it was kind of a wake up call to me to be our society today is so about alcohol, right? It's let's go to happy hour, let's grab a drink. And I'm yeah, let's grab a water. Anyways, continue.
That was so random.
It was just about sorry.
Yeah. So, your physique, let's just talk about how it impacts the way you look. So, any decrease in muscle protein synthesis, it impacts your ability to grow muscle. That's all you really need to know on that. Now, there's a lot of different pathways for muscle protein synthesis to occur, but the most frequently one studied in the literature, okay, going straight from science, is Mtor signaling, okay? And there was a study done. It's just a pathway that stimulates muscle protein synthesis. It's a cellular signaling pathway that turns muscle protein synthesis up, right? And it's necessary for you to see muscle gains, okay? Now, there's different things we can do to manipulate mTOR signaling through different training methods, which is what frustrates me a lot about our industry, is that most people don't even know what mTOR is who are trainers, but that's okay. When we talk about alcohol consumption, it does impact mTOR signaling. It decreases it. So how does that impact... we got to wrap up. I got to...
Go ahead.
How does it impact your ability to make gains? It decreases by 25%. Okay, so a decrease in 25% was found in rugby players who consumed 8 beers after a competition. Okay, 8 beers is a lot in the matter of a few hours. Okay, that's binge drinking, and they saw a quarter reduction in muscle protein synthesis. If and here's where it gets fun, they consumed protein with that alcohol post exercise or post competition. So key phrase: if you're gonna drink, if you're gonna consume alcohol, consuming protein, after a workout and then going out for a night of drinking, don't miss the protein, because it does attenuate the impact that alcohol has on muscle protein synthesis. Does that make sense? If you just drink alcohol and don't do anything else after a workout, say you work out at the gym on a Friday night and then you go out, get a meal in, because if you don't, it's going to be a 37% or 40% decrease in muscle protein synthesis just because you missed that meal. So that's kind of cool, right? You can do things to increase muscle protein synthesis consciously if you're going to be drinking, to decrease the amount of muscle protein synthesis that occurs, right? That's just thinking smart. That's planning ahead. So some other things you can understand is fat mobilization. Everybody always wants to burn fat, shred fat. How does that happen? Fat oxidation, right? You have to mobilize fatty acids. Particularly, most people want it from their adipose tissue or their body fat, and use that as energy in order to burn fat. That's what burning fat is.
All this,
and we are.
Because I feel
but how does alcohol impact fat mobilization in your body?
It doesn't move.
It impacts it. It decreases fat mobilization.
It slows down your ability and rate of fat loss.
Even the next day, right? So the alcohol is still being processed. Fatty acids are not being mobilized as much as they would be if you didn't overconsume alcohol the night before. That's how much of an impact it has on your long-term and short-term physique, right? So if you're chronically consuming alcohol and trying to make gains
here, chronically.
Acutely, different story.
Yeah.
On the weekends, most people just drink on the weekends. That's okay, but are you over consuming every single weekend? That's chronic. Or is it when there's and if it is chronic, then listen, I understand, but you gotta adjust your workout times, okay? You don't need to be going into a night of binge drinking, having done, you know, a
heavy
very
ass
heavy
leg
leg
day.
day that day. Your legs are not going to repair. They're not going to recover. Shit, they might even get smaller. I don't know.
And remember that recovery is where the muscle growth happens.
And you're inhibiting your recovery.
Our muscle fibers, we crush our muscle fibers, we do the heavy shit in the gym, but the growth and the gains actually get made in recovery, and alcohol does not allow us to recover.
So if you guys want to go check out those studies, I am done. I actually have to jump on a call, but you can go to gainswithgerds.com. I have a blog on the effects of alcohol and your physique.
And if you were confused by anything he said, talking about mTOR pathway, talking about muscle protein synthesis, mobilization of fatty acids, if you want a biochemistry lesson, because literally it's like, I was just about to like redraw it for you guys, and there's no way I could do that without probably doing a 5-hour seminar. So if that's something you're interested in, let us know. And let us know what topic you want next week. And I'm going to...
Slap by science.
Oh.
The dollar bill.
Hold on, guys. This is the best part. Oh, thank you. Okay. He's so scared. Thanks for watching. Science Slaps.
Bye. Okay, that was easy.
Bye. Happy
see y'all next
Friday.
week. Have a good weekend.
And thank you who re-philosopher. Thank you so much. Mwah. Bye, guys.